Hello, everyone. Welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo, the go-to podcast for those seeking success that resonates on every level. Our guide on this journey to success is J.A. Dava, co-founder of Latreia Coaching and Consulting. Each episode, we challenge you to step outside your comfort zone in redefining holistic success. Because in order to truly excel, one must rise in all aspects of life: spiritual, physical, relational, and philanthropical. So buckle up. Let's explore how your vocation and well-being can harmonize perfectly. And give a warm welcome to the host of Challenging Your Status Quo, J.A. Dava.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is J.A. Dava with Latreia Now 360. So welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo. And guys, I'm so privileged every single time I get to interview some great people from our industry. I'm always so privileged because there's just so much more that we could be doing, but for whatever reason, we eventually have to stop, right? And my guest today is someone that I easily could be sitting with and talking for hours upon hours. And obviously we'll give ourselves another 45 minutes today just to be able to have a nice little discussion that will help you not only vocationally, but also to start kind of focusing on those things that are really important. Because as you well know, challenging your status quo isn't just about being successful in your vocation. It really has everything else to do with the fact that there is a sense of holistic success. Not only should you be vocationally successful, and I hope you all are, but sometimes if you don't feel like you are successful vocationally, it might be because other things are off balance. Okay, so when we thought of challenging your status quo, that is really what Latreia mission is to make sure that you not only are successful vocationally, but that everything else is also successful. And so today's guest is going to take us to that other level. I've no doubt in my mind. She's someone who, well, I got to tell you, in today's age, hardly ever do people, even when they're local to each other, hardly ever do they meet in person, ever. I mean, it's just that we've gotten so used to this digital world, and now people meet in Zoom, Teams, whatever it is platform that you use, people will do that. And I just remember making that phone call, and I was already kind of in that world, by the way. I was kind of called out by our guest. She called me on, she goes, on Zoom, why not meet in person since we're local? And I didn't know what to say to that, honestly, because it's like, wait, hold on a second. That's interrupting my day, right? That's more time. And then it was just really kind of humbling because it rooted me back to the fact that what are we really investing our time in? And who are we investing our time in? So we met for the first time in person, by the way, and it was one of the greatest meetings because we were actually able to just kind of really flow a lot better than this ever will be. And so with that said, enough said, I want to introduce you to our guest, Julia Brown. Okay, Julia Brown, I'm going to bring her on. Julia, welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo. How are you?
Great, J.A. Good morning, and thank you for the introduction. I didn't mean to call you out in that moment, but I am so happy to be here. I think when we consider business to business or even business to consumer opportunities to work together, I want to make sure they're with the right partners and with people who are worth solving problems alongside of. And I think it's a great litmus test when you sit down face to face versus virtually. I think you're always competing for attention, right?
Yeah.
When you're not face to face. And a lot of times out of necessity, we have to be in this format. But I truly believe that the strongest relationships are built by working side to side when you can. And candidly, by going through things that are hard together. And I think it's just a better foundation. So I was so appreciative that you were willing to have that meeting face to face with me those months ago when I was new on my entrepreneurial journey. And, I was a little bit less busy than you were back then. So
Yeah.
it was easier for me to do. But I do try to meet with people face to face. I'm based in Columbus. My company is called Telescope Advisors. And when I can, it's so much more impactful. And it's easier to uncover opportunities that are common ground when you are face to face. So, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Well, what's really interesting is that, our meeting, a lot of things were changing in your world at that time,
Mhm.
right? So I'm not even going to pretend like I even really know what you have transitioned into. But something happened at that restaurant, and here I was thinking, just like any one of us, especially on the vocational side, right? We business develop, we do all those kind of things. So networking is just part of that. And I came in meeting with you, expecting to meet somebody that was someone that is an influencer inside of a company called Lower, right? And so I was stepping in there, and as soon as I sat down, you disclosed to me something, and so I want. So here's the question I'm really going to ask you: Who are you, and what do you do, and what have you transitioned into? But tell the rest of the group what happened when I sat down with you, and I'm thinking I'm geared to talk about Lower and all of that kind of stuff. And what is it that you eventually said to me?
Sure. My name is Julia Brown. I am a wife, a mother, a follower of Christ, and I own and operate a boutique business management advisory firm that centers on M&A, integration management, and operationalizing startups or small to mid-sized firms to help them have a very strong foundation. My clients and my partners are always companies that strive to do better for their employees, for their customers, and for their partners in business.
Yeah.
I had worked at Lower for a decade, and I loved every moment of my time at Lower. It was a mortgage. It's a IMB that is a top 50 IMB in the country by volume, and has a very strong appetite for growth. You could see this over the years with different strategies for opening new divisions and channels. There was a consumer direct division, a retail division, and a TPO or third party origination division, wholesale, at this one organization. Their growth appetite for bringing in net branches, adding DBAs, doing acquisition as the company grew, doing B2B work, like with we had a relationship with Open Door that launched in 2021. And as the company grew, I started very early on in the company, and I started at the headquartered location where the CEO works. So I was given a lot of opportunities to grow as the company grew. And I don't take for granted at all that every time I was put in a position that gave me more access and more insight to how business works, that I needed to do something with it.
Yeah.
It couldn't just be, I've got this additional skill set and I'm going to just continue to serve in the same way I always have. And I got to a point where 10 years into this organization, the easiest, simplest thing to do would have been to continue on in a great role at a great company that was local. We're a huge soccer family, and Lower has the naming rights to the
Right.
to the cruise field, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, sweet tickets. My kid had an opportunity to kick a goal on Crew Cat, and we had opportunities for my kid to be on the field, and all of these things. And I gave it up and walked away from it because I got to a point where my vision for the impact I wanted to have on our industry outgrew what was available at a single organization. And that is not a knock on Lower, because it doesn't matter if that single organization is UWM or Lower or Wells Fargo. It's not about which organization it is. It's about the fact that it's just one organization.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I started Telescope Advisors with the purpose of helping to build into as many organizations within our industry as I can, to do just what I said, help them build stronger teams internally, help them have better relationships with their business partners, and help their customer loyalty skyrocket through the techniques that I've developed over the years.
That's awesome. And then and so it was surprising, right? I'm sitting down
Yes.
with you and I'm thinking I'm going to be talking about something with about Laura, and here we are redirecting our conversation. So not only did you redirect me away from my desk, you redirected our conversation as soon as we sat down, and we had a great little meal, a great little snack, right? And it was a great little coffee shop that we were at. But that redirection turned out to be one of the biggest blessings, because it reminded me of why I have become self-employed and been for a while, right? And just being able to have that so-called open mind to really kind of create, and meeting someone like yourself, it just opened it up, because we both have rich histories in our businesses, and now we get to kind of unfold it based on what you have seen in the industry. So tell me about Telescope for just a sec, and I'm specifically asking you about the name Telescope, right? So because people ask us all the time about Latreia, I'm curious about Telescope, and you've got it on your lapel there. So tell me
Representing.
about Telescope and what that really means.
Okay, I've got to walk it like all the way through. So telescope comes from Aristotle. So we go back a couple thousands of years, right?
Right.
I'm a moral philosophy junkie, and the idea here of telos is an old concept. Telos is one's greatest aim, and this could be for a physical object or for human beings, right? It's a kind of agnostic. What is the greatest purpose that someone or something has? What's its highest utility? And so that's telos. And where telescope comes in is, okay, like names are hard to come by. Like shorter names are hard to come by. They're usually already taken. There's already a couple M&A firms out there. I think one in California and one in New York that are called Telos. And I didn't want to mess with attorneys that already had these names. So telescope is taking that telos, Telos, and adding kind of this imagery of a telescope, which is the idea that
Yeah.
founders, owners, visionaries, they can see far out, but maybe it's a bit fuzzy. And the purpose of my firm is to take what's fuzzy and work with those visionaries and those founders and executive teams and clarify. So we help companies execute on their visions.
Fascinating.
And
Okay.
the idea there too is like not just that this is my telos, but we're helping other companies hit their and achieve their telos as well, their greatest purpose or aim.
So I mean, there's so many different things that you can walk into when you say it from that perspective. So, and I love the whole idea of telos, by the way. So let me ask you this, since it is part of the naming that you have there, what is your greatest purpose? So when you started this company, you left, and by the way, I mean, I want to reiterate something here that you opened up by saying you're a mother of how many?
Two,
Two. How old?
3, and 9.
3 and 9. That's usually not when most people become self-employed, by the way, right? I did that when I was when I jumped, because I've been an independent contractor for 20, oh my goodness gracious, 24 years now, right? My oldest is 29. So it gives you a little bit of ideas. And nobody does that, except for crazy people like you and I. And you did it. So there's so many different places and everything else that you would be doing that. What is your greatest purpose? What do you think your greatest purpose is?
I mean, I'm not a vigilante, but I still think there are some bad actors in our industry that have too much market share. So I want to see these companies that are here showing up to do good and to revolutionize the way that we do business in positive ways. I want them to take up as much market share as humanly possible. So I want to add scaffolding to those companies to help make space for them to do just that, for those companies to be the ones that survive and advance in our industry over the next 5 to 10 years, which I really think is crucial. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of consolidation that is great for shareholders and terrible for customers. I mean, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I hate DoorDash. I don't know how you feel about DoorDash, but I could do without it. I
I don't
think
use it.
it's made the experience of going into a restaurant less enjoyable. Even if it's a Chipotle, right? You're getting the 1 minute finger because they've got 17 orders for DoorDash to get through before they deal with the customers who are there. If you're the DoorDash recipient at the same time, they forgot your drink, they messed up your order, there's no chips, so you have guac but no chips. Like, it's not benefiting the individual people. And then from a driver's side, like maybe as a driver, you've got all of these orders, you missed something, you got to go back, you didn't get paid as much as you thought you would be because you missed something. It's convenience, but it's truly not convenient. And we've created a dependency on it. And who benefits from it is DoorDash, the corporation, right? Not the people involved at any point. And so that's kind of where I come back to. And obviously, this is an example outside of our industry, but this is where I come back to the human element and the human interaction and the human experience needing space in the transaction or in the relationship, regardless of what industry it is.
So, I mean, so right. No.
I mean, I'm sorry, I had to go off on my tangent about DoorDash.
No,
We can bring it back
that's
to
okay because that's real, and it's so much more real today than ever because of the world of AI, right?
Mhm.
I mean, first of all, you asking to meet in person is already an example of what you're talking about, right? With
Mhm.
DoorDash and everything else, people are
Yeah.
missing that experience. People are missing that interaction. They're missing that just the experience of it all, right? And so, and but then how wonderful it is when you actually go and do those kind of things, right? Like meeting in person, all of those kind of things made that interaction that much more enjoyable. And you and I have developed this friendship and developed this really support of each other because of that meeting. By the way, it would have been different had it been just a phone call
Mhm.
or through a Zoom even, right? And so, but with that said, you have I love the whole idea of good guys win, right? Because
Yeah.
you really you want to step out. So let's talk about that for a second. There's going to be some people here listening right now that are going to be asking you. You've been in the business for quite some time. You dealt with some of the worst and best, especially when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, right? Because you really see what a company is all about when you're dealing with mergers and acquisitions. By the way, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. You don't just get the facade. You see
Mhm.
the whole thing.
Yep.
So if you had to talk about the mortgage industry, the business itself, um, what do you think of our industry at this point? What are some of the things that you would think, you know, managers, leaders, even loan officers in this market should be all about?
I'll start with loan officers because I use AI in my business.
Hmm.
Jay, I don't know about Latreia if you guys use
We
AI or
do
not.
big time. Yeah.
It helps make it possible for people like you and me to meet face to face because it can make us more efficient in other ways. And so I think about this with loan officers too. If I were a loan officer in this moment, I would be leveraging AI every single day. I would be using AI to help craft messages to prospective referral partners and to help iterate my point. I'd be asking ChatGPT, hey, I've got to share bad news with a client about their appraised value. They're first time homebuyers. They've never been through this before. Here's what I'm considering saying. Could they understand this? Could someone, and just because most people read at a fifth grade level, I would say, is this written in a way that a fifth grader could understand or
Yeah.
someone at a fifth grade level could understand? What would be the best approach? Would it be calling them? And this is just kind of, you go through and you ask ChatGPT, and then that becomes part of the playbook for the future. You don't ask this every single time, but especially for loan officers who are newer to the game. I've got to deliver bad news. What's the right way to do it to help make this go well or as well as it can? I would be using it to help scrub contact lists, or to come up with scripting for reach outs on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or content creation. And without sharing a lot of personal identifying information, I would avoid anything like, social security, income, names, nothing
Right.
like that should be going into chat GPT. But the idea being use that to leverage your time better and get better outcomes, and also like free up your time a bit so that you can go meet with people face to face and develop stronger relationships and still execute well on the back end.
I actually love that because I mean, so Latreia,
Mm-hmm.
we have shifted into how important AI, but we've added another um, acronym in there. It's called EQ in it because that's really what you're talking about, right? Is AI kind of brings everybody to a level of intellect, almost that to the point where you can research anything out and literally sound even better. I mean, to formulate your sentences better, all those kind of things, right? Just because of where it is, but it's the EQ side of things. Like, how do you empathetically deliver a message like that? How do you put that right tone to it so that, because you still do care. It's not like because I'm more studied now that I have the right to now be rude to you. I still
Right.
have got to be able to pull those things together. So I love the fact that you went there with loan officers because it's funny to me because I get to coach them all the time where no one wants to admit they're using it. It's almost like
Mhm.
there's an embarrassing side. Like I'm supposed to be, well, if I use ChatGPT, that kind of makes me look like I don't know what I'm talking about or doing and stuff like that. That's so contrary. That's like saying I don't want to use a computer to be more efficient, because I mean, it is, it'll make you more efficient. And the thing is that people are also afraid that they're going to get laid off because of ChatGPT. So why empower that? But to the contrary, somebody who could do two or three deals a month now by implementing AI could end up having 10 to 12 at any given point because there's certain tasks that they now can give out there that they don't have to do anymore,
Mhm.
right? To help them become more efficient. So I love the fact that you went there. So that is a key factor in some of the biggest changes. And I love that you did not say that is a market situation. Like most people will answer that, oh, the market's really tight right now and all these kind of things. You went to something that is absolutely a relevant topic today. A lot of
It
people
is.
want it, they don't know how to implement it.
Well, and what's funny too is, Jay, when I was at Lower, again, without any personal identifying information being included, I oversaw, repurchases post closing, and we would get repurchase requests and we would have an opportunity to do a rebuttal on them.
Yeah.
And one of my best post close credit risk analyst would beef up her arguments and trained her chat GPT with Fannie Freddie and investor guidelines and overlays to be able to combat them. And I say she was my best because she had the best percentage of rescinded repurchases where they accepted her arguments or her position and said, okay, we will buy the loan and move on. More so than people doing it on their own. So you think of it from a sales side, you think of it from an EQ side, and then you also think of it from hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars back in the bank of the IMB or credit union, or fiduciary institution when they're willing to leverage it. And she was able to work through so many more deals so much more quickly by leveraging AI. And it was, AI that had been trained for this purpose. And it added so much value to the company. I don't know why you wouldn't use it. I
Right.
would. It's yeah, it's protecting your profitability. So
Yes.
I've heard about the fear, and I know that it's there. Um, so I would recommend people try it in a lightweight way. If you're afraid of using AI, like it's not going away. It's like a
Yeah.
calculator. It's like you said, it's like a Google search. It's like a computer. It's not going away. So ask for a recipe. I always say ask for a recipe if you've got friends coming over and they want ceviche. Ask how to do it and
That's
do
right.
something lightweight,
That's
right? Like
exactly right.
try it out.
Would you say the same thing about leaders at this point as well?
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
100%. Your people are using it.
Yeah.
And if you're not using it, you're going to get left behind.
Yes.
You'll get
In
caught
fact,
flat-footed.
in fact, by knowing it, you might really be able to come alongside most of your people and help them become a lot more efficient. Because I think there's a lot about AI. I mean, it changes daily, weekly. People are just starting to really understand it. What you might have learned 2 weeks ago is already old news. And so you're a loan officer, you should be a loan officer. So use the right tools and the right AI tools to make it happen for yourself, but you don't have to go in and try to be a coder and understand what ones and zeros are and all that kind of stuff to be able to effectively use it. Ask the right questions. And as a leader, they should be doing the exact same thing. Right.
Right. And I think you've got to, as a leader, be aware of the usage of different AI tools by your people, because sometimes, the term AI hallucinations, where AI screws things up. I think if you ask, in the past anyway, if you ask like ChatGPT how many R's are in strawberry, it says like 7 or something, right? Because it's not perfect. It's learning as it goes. So you've got to be able to spot if someone sends you an email that they drafted in ChatGPT and they don't really know what they're talking about. They might present like they do because they leveraged a tool, an AI tool. And so to be able to understand, okay, this person maybe sent me an email. These are the points where it's not making sense. Don't assume that person is an idiot. Assume
Right.
that person doesn't know this information and they tried to leverage a tool thinking that it did. They might have full confidence in AI, not realizing that it is capable of making mistakes. And that's an opportunity for you to build into them and to help them truly understand. Um,
Absolutely.
for leaders, I think that that's an important thing. You've got to be aware of who's using what AI tools and how within your team.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's for sure. And one last question on the business side of things,
Yeah.
because I do want to. I'm very intrigued by why you made the move that you did, right at the time that you did. But mergers and acquisitions, you've seen a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there are companies that hope that they will never understand what that's all about, and they don't want to be. What are you seeing in today? I mean, when you see mergers and acquisitions, what usually are some of them? I don't know. I don't even want to say red flags on that, but what are you seeing that causes usually absorption or mergers and acquisitions to happen in companies?
It's so hard right now because there have been so many unprofitable or barely profitable quarters in a row for mortgage companies, especially those that are not diversified. Some of the bigger banks have had massive reductions in their origination volume over the last couple of years, and that's strategic because they have assets in other ways, deposits, etc. For the IMBs specifically, what I'm finding is the owners who have a difficult time making changes and adapting as the market adapts, just taking for granted that things will bounce back, and then they haven't quarter after quarter after quarter. And so they're not doing things that they need to do, like right sizing their operations team, or putting accountability around the spending of their loan officers,
Mm.
or putting accountability around the loan officers' minimum production requirements if they're on a draw, or if not, if they're on benefits. Um, those are some things that quickly can cause you to become a target for acquisition if you're not intending to. Other things, your tech stack. I know that every big producer that comes on wants their own CRM that they've had for a couple years that they're really comfortable and confident in. But if you're signing up enterprise accounts with multiple point of sale systems and multiple CRMs, quickly you can have a very bloated tech stack. And so
Mm.
that's another area of risk. And I think that having a culture that's not a high performance culture, where people are not getting coaching or are not being held accountable to standards, whether that's on pricing execution or ability to hold margin as an originator, or if that's your compensation packages for LOAs, processors, underwriters. Like there's a lot here of bloat that kind of goes along when owners and leadership teams, executive teams, keep the status quo. Status quo is resilient, but you got to break it as the market adapts, and we're going through that period of adapting now.
Well, I mean, there's how true all of that is, and the cost of loans today, right, for companies, uh, really, that's how much tighter you need to be making the right decisions, and how often I get to see it where companies will buy technology because of recruiting somebody in, and it just goes awry, right? And so, anyways, those are just some of the signals, and there's so
Yeah.
much more. That's a topic on its own, right? As far as our leaders are concerned. But this show is really about, it is about vocation, and it's about hearing some of the tips that you've already talked about, and the implementation of AI, and then being able to watch the little red flags that are coming up for to stay away from being acquired and or becoming part of an merger and acquisition type of a situation. But one of the things that I love about this show is the fact that vocational success can sometimes be, you know, it might be something that you absolutely believe you're doing well, but there's other things in life that make it more of a holistic type of success. And something that I still find fascinating from the minute I met you, when you told me that you no longer would lower, and that you were now on your own. But shortly before that, you had told me that you have family as young as they are, and so you had to have thought to yourself, vocational success, relational success, family, how important that is to you. So can you tell me? Can you let me in that world? Because there's an awful lot of people. I'm not saying people should quit their jobs and become self-employed and all that kind of stuff, but how important was family to you when you made the decision, number one, just like everyone should be making their decisions on what they do vocationally to what they do relationally? Can you let me in on that a little bit? Was family a factor to you, relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that Latreia has got this 360 approach to supporting their clients because it's all integrated. We're integrated human beings. We talk about work-life balance, and I just think it's life balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're not on this earth. I don't believe we're on this earth to work as hard as we can for as long as we can until we drop dead. I want to do good and meaningful work, and I want my kids to see me like firing on all cylinders with shoot in my eye, so excited about the work that I'm doing every day. Um, and so there are different people in this world who are all wired differently. Some people are completely content raising their families with a steady paycheck and then shift into an advisory or consulting capacity on the back end of their career, right? After the 401k has been maxed out for 30 years straight and the kids are out of college and they're ready to like start winding their careers down, giving advice here and there to companies. That's not me. Again, I wanted my kids to see me doing work that I believed in every single day, and being able to call the shots around who I worked with, what kind of work I did, and what it would mean for our family and how our family could benefit from that. That was really important to me. Um, what working at Lower, like I said, from startup to top 50 IMB, I grew as the company, my career grew as the company grew.
Sure.
And it was wonderful for a very long time. But then my skills got to a point where I felt like I needed to move beyond that and start supporting as many other companies as I could positively to help them grow. And what it's meant for my kids is that I work from home, but I also travel a lot more. I'm at events a lot, conferences a lot. And that has meant that one of their grandmas has come and stayed with them and helped my husband, because he also works full time, to take care of them more. And that's been really fun for them. Startup life is really hard. It's not easy to be a founder of a startup. And my plan for this company is not for it to be a solopreneur endeavor indefinitely. But the next couple of years, they kind of understand mom's got to work a lot to get this off the ground. We're in a hustle time, but they're used to that. They're used to me hustling. Now I'm just hustling for our family. And I say hustle, I don't mean it in any negative way. It's not like grind. But they're seeing it differently now. I am building an annuity either for them or, for myself over the next 20, 30 years, that I would like to be a business that can be sold. And with acquisition and what I just said about what could make you an acquisition target, it's not all negative. Like, there are some times that an acquisition is a really good thing for both companies.
Sure.
Because you get better culture, aligned, better communication, better product offering, better pricing, leadership team that is more knowledgeable, can help you be more successful. There are some acquisitions that are really good. And what I want to do is help to give those opportunities, those people who are being acquired with the M&A integration management piece, the best chance possible to have successful outcomes of those acquisitions. And I've gotten to do that. Yeah.
I mean, Julia, you know what? So what's interesting about what you're really talking about is that, whether or not somebody is independent consulting, or, they're self-employed or they work for somebody, is there really much of a difference by the time it's all said and done? Is there that much of a difference between how hard you're working when you're working for companies versus yourself? I mean, what do you say to that?
I'm always internally pressure. I'm a pressure cooker internally. Like, my bosses in the course of the 20 years I've been working have never put more pressure on me than I put on myself. And now that I'm self-employed, I don't have any less sense of urgency than I did when I worked at a company. I do think that what I'm finding, like I said, is we're not just intended to be worker bees our whole lives. And I don't want my kids, I want to model a different way for my kids.
Right.
Where they don't put too much pressure on themselves to just be worker bees their whole lives. I want for them to lead integrated lives where they have a close relationship with God. They're choosing to spend time with their family, even when it's not obligated of them, right? I want them to be really wonderful, full people. And I know, a decade ago, people said, I just want my kids to be happy. Well, that's not really on me, but I do want them to be prepared for the road ahead. And the world is changing so much right now. I do need to be more hands-on with them than I have been these last 10 years. And being self-employed does make that possible.
It allows you to be more flexible with your time and everything else. But I will say it, the grinding perspective of building a business and stuff like that, it's just as hard as when I truly believe if you want to become self-employed, that if you're already finding yourself grinding for somebody else, you're going to grind for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're already weak on that category and you were barely getting away with it, or, honestly, you were just getting away with it by not grinding and everything else, you're probably not a candidate to work for yourself, because now, at least here, you got to grind it out. Right. So what do you say to that?
100%, especially getting started. I think maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now, I'll be able to have other people within the organization who can fulfill the work or do business development. Hopefully at some point, I'm doing only the work that I can do. But right now I am accounting. I am, I'm wearing all the hats. I'm IT support. I'm not good IT support. Yeah. I'm wearing all of the hats today. And I will say I am working as much, if not more, and I'm thinking about the business as much, if not more. Even if I'm not working on it, when I'm at a soccer game or a lacrosse game, I'm still thinking about the business, the conversations, how how everything has to line up. And there is a lot more pressure on the financial piece. I calculate my run rate every month. Every month I'm thinking about, okay, what's coming in, what's going out? Is this the best use of my resources? Whereas before, sure, I had a budget for the departments that I oversaw and I could manage to the budget, but I wasn't on the hook personally, right? Like my
Right.
HELOC balance wasn't going to change if we hit budget or not.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but did you treat it differently though? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, um, I have a feeling that you already had it in your mindset that you were going to be a good steward of the
yes,
of that, whether or not it was through a company, and even more so now than ever. You think about it more, but is there really much of a difference when you approached it? You were going to be a good steward of all of that, no matter what. And what I'm hearing from you from that perspective is that, yeah, you already had that innately inside of you. So if you're questioning whether or not you should be self-employed, it's kind of like people who work from home now, right? Because so
yeah,
many of us went home, and there are certain people that can work from home, by the way,
yeah,
but there's an awful lot of us that could never work out of a home because it's oh well, I got to do some gardening, or what, that's really bugging me. I'm going to clean up the living room at this point, and things like that. And all of a sudden, you're doing 10 million other things besides what you should be doing work wise. And so you discipline yourself by going to work. And I find that being self employed, and I'm sure you're going through it now, is that, you know, you probably work harder than you've ever worked,
hmm
but the gratification is so much more than I ever thought I would ever get from it.
yeah. I have been doing this thing where I have boss hat, employee hat, both for me.
Yeah.
And I've been playing with it based on how many engagements I have in the terms of, my client contracts. But I do have like a strategy where I do 2 hours of business development per day, one on new and one on existing prospects. And I keep track of that 2 hours a day. And then like May, for instance, based on my client engagements, it's 3 hours of contracted work per day that I'm doing. Um, and then I've got an hour of learning a day, an hour of content creation and social engagement a day. And that puts me at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day of work right there. And that's not administrative. That's not including, keeping up with expenses and, IT and all these things. And I tell myself every day, I grade myself. Did I hit it or not? If I failed, why did I fail? If on this day I had to do 5 hours of client work, but that means I get a renewed contract because they're so delighted with the outcomes, great, that was worth it. Or if today I did 5 hours of BD and that meant I didn't do the education component for the day, okay, that was worth it because I had a really great conversation from a BD perspective that's going to lead to revenue. So anyway, I grade myself on that every day, and then I let myself off the hook. Okay, if I hit it or if I can justify why I didn't, that's enough for me. If this were my employee, would I be satisfied with this amount of work? Yes or no? And then that's how I kind of tell my brain to shut up afterwards because, God tells us not to worry. And I think that doesn't mean like, oh, everything is going to just work out on its own. You have to work hard,
Yes.
but know what that means. Know what working hard looks like for what you want out of your business. And then once you hit it, be okay.
You know what? One of the things that brilliantly said, by the way, is that you're time blocked.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely time blocked. Everything you just said, 2 hours of this, 3 hours of that, all of those kind of things. Most people don't do that, by the way. In fact, it's one of the reasons why salespeople, self-employed people fail,
Yeah.
is because they don't do the time blocking. They don't realize how much more efficient you can be by being fully time blocked. In fact, I get into arguments with some of my clients when they start talking about that is so meticulous that I mean I just can't keep discipline that way. And I'm thinking to myself, you just defeated the whole idea of discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's being able to focus on the certain areas. Yes, you can adjust, but it's easier to adjust when you know what you're adjusting, right?
Yes.
Than if you're just flying by the seat of your pants. And I have a feeling that you do that with your own family as well. I mean, from a relational standpoint, what your daughter's events are, what your husband's and your personal events are, and those kind of things. And it sounds funny because a lot of people will tell me, you can't time block those kind of things. Yes, you can. You absolutely can, right? Because you start your day by being able to assess your work day. Why aren't you assessing your family? Do you do that?
Oh yeah. The kids know, the kids completely know and understand, even at 3 and 9, that we all have responsibilities and obligations as members of society that extend in different ways. They each get an hour of screen time a day. That's it. My 9-year-old
Hmm.
hates it. I'm the meanest mom. I'm the most strict mom. But the ways that they engage with, and with this said, I don't think an hour a day is too little, candidly. They do get screens in school somewhat. And I think relationships are so important. What happens when you ask your child to put the screen down? What are they forced to do? They're forced to get creative. So, my oldest son, he's not an independent play kid. He hasn't been. When I worked in a corporate environment, he had less restrictions on screen time because I would be at the laptop and he would be, on the iPad, and I would be fine with that because it's what I had to do at the time. Now I wait until the kids go to bed and then I can log back in, or I wake up before they do. I don't want them to see me addicted to a screen. And what happens is he wants to play chess with me. So we play chess. He beats me every time. He whoops me. I think I've won 3 times out of like 100 matches. He's so smart. He is so smart. But we play chess together, or like there's, we'll play rock, paper, scissors, or he'll ask to, read a book, or he wants to shoot the basketball on the hoop on the back of his closet. You give him a screen and let him have it for 4 hours straight. He doesn't do any of that. He's totally content sitting in front of a screen for 4 hours straight. My
Right.
3-year-old, on the other hand, after like 20 minutes, will hand me back his iPad and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. He, post-COVID kid, totally different. He likes to play independently. He loves to play with toys. He'll play with me too, but he's totally fine just sitting with trucks and like makes up little stories. This is the good one, this is the bad one. Rah, rah, rah. He plays the way that I played when I was a kid, and I think as a parent, that is really important to me, because to me that shows that he is going to be very good at occupying his time without a screen further out. He's very attentive. He wants to know, is the dog happy? Is mom happy? Like, how can I engage and play with dad? He's always thinking about other people. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he hasn't been in front of a screen as much. My older son, like I said, very smart, but has a harder time keeping his mind occupied without me there to help him, because he was on a screen so much.
Yeah. You know what? As I'm listening to you, I kept thinking, what would Julia have been like if she would have continued that career in Lower and other companies, whatever companies you're in, compared to you having to step out? Um, I want you to tell our executives and
Mm-hmm.
or our leaders, managers, and above, even salespeople, honestly, can listen to what you're about to say.
Yeah.
That how do you view family in your career? How do you balance that? I mean, what is it that you would say to somebody right now if they were to just say to you, man, what do I need to watch out for? Again, whether or not you're self-employed or not, what would you say to somebody?
It's funny. I was in Colombia last week with our former au pair. She lived with us. She's from Colombia, and she's younger, and she's an accountant in Colombia. And we were on vacation together, and her boss kept calling over and over, over and over. They had fired the person who was responsible for something, and they wanted her to log in on her time off and create a report. And I said to her, listen, there are times in your career where you have to jump when they say jump. And you got to get the repetitions under your belt to get the mastery of the skill. And then there are times in your career where you need to be able to set clear boundaries. And a boundary isn't like, you're not being a jerk. You're not saying like, it's 5:01, I'm never touching any work again, right? I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is from 5 to 9 is my family time. And everyone who works with me knows this. Eastern time, 5 to 9, I'm with my boys. That is it. My husband. But my husband works nights and weekends. So 5 to 9 is the kids' time. And I have developed enough mastery and set clear enough expectations with my partners that they respect it. But you teach people how to treat you. And this is what I told Donna when we were on vacation. You are teaching these people how to treat you long term. So if you're going to do this report while you're on vacation and that's okay with you, then that's okay with you. If you do it, but you don't want this to become the norm, you've got to express, hey, we're in a pinch right now because of, this person's missing from the company, so I'm going to do this. But in the future, when I request days off and they're approved, I have no plans of even bringing my laptop with me, right? And maybe that's different in different times, but what you don't want to do is go along with things and have an internal change of heart around your approach to work and not express it, because that's when you start to have conflict with the person that you work with or work for. And sometimes we, instead of communicating, we'll throw up huge walls. Like, oh, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Like, I'm on my lunch hour. It's 5:01. I'm done. I think having open dialogue and communication is really important around what's acceptable to you as an employee and what's not. And that will help your employer or manager share with you what's acceptable to them and what's not, because there are two sides of the coin here. And finding out whether or not you're a fit with an organization or a fit with a partner if you're self-employed long term, it's evolving, right? The companies are different today than they were 5-10 years ago. People are different today than they were 5-10 years ago. And this is going to be ever more true as we move into the next 5 years of business with AI. So I think communication becomes more and more important. And I would say, know yourself, understand where you're at, express where you're at in a respectful way to your employer or to your partners, and always be analyzing, is this the right fit or not? That would be my advice.
It's tremendous advice. You know what's strange, Julia? It's already been 51 minutes since you and I started talking. Do you know that?
I didn't even.
That's why I knew when I first said to our audience, we could talk for 3 hours and just hit the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you something, because we got to shut it down, right?
Sure.
We got to shut it down. I'd love for you to join me again. Because there's so many more things that we could be talking about. This topic itself, we just started to get into it. What the tips that you were just sharing regarding family time, believe it or not, that was family time, even though you were talking about vocation. Mm-hmm. And I'll recap that in just a sec. But mergers and acquisitions is something we could be talking about right now for the next hour.
Yeah, it's
true. And then, when you and I first started prepping for this call, one of the things that you and I were talking about is the spiritual side of that and how important that is. And you've actually alluded to that already, about some of the things that you want your kids to be able to walk away with someday. That is purely relational, but it's also very spiritual, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then being able to talk about the philanthropical side. You had mentioned earlier, before we came on the air, about how so many people just don't even look at those two aspects of their lives, the spiritual side, the philanthropical side, and how much more uplifting that is and how much more that can actually help you in your career path by being able to give rather than just always trying to receive, right? Mm-hmm. And so, Julia, I would love to have you back on the show and discuss some of those other things. Because I just think that people need to hear it. And it's people like you who have been in the career path for so long, and you're still so young, but there's so much more left, but already you've already experienced, that I've outgrown this and I need to go on a different direction. So would you do that for us? Would you come back on?
I would love to.
That'd be awesome. So I'm going to give you the final word, at least from this perspective, before I ask you to step outside. Just from our conversation, what would you say to our audience at this point on just anything that we've been talking about? What's one thing that you'd want to be able to just leave people with?
If I could share anything with the audience today, knowing a bit about who listens in to this podcast, I think it would be getting to know yourself and taking time to reflect in writing is a very valuable way of slowing your brain down. I think there are a lot of very anxious people in the world today, and there are a lot of very good and gifted people out there who strive to achieve and are never satisfied with themselves. So I would just say, as a practice, the next time you feel anxious or really overwhelmed and aren't sure what to do next, take out a pen and paper. And I always say it's like a bowl of spaghetti in your brain. And you just, when you write, you lay the spaghetti noodles flat
Yeah,
instead of it all being messy in a bowl. That's what I would say.
that's awesome. Well, it's a great way to end this episode. It certainly is not the end of our episode because we've got other things to cover. And I look forward to being able to have you back on in the next couple of months, even, right? So something sooner than later, so to speak. And so, Julia, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing what you did and really bringing to light the beginnings of what vocational success could look like, as well as really where family should come into play. The whole idea of relational uh, being come into play. So, again, thank you for that, Julia, and I look forward to having you on the show one more time. All right.
Thank you, J.A.
Absolutely. And guys, for everybody else that's listening, that ends our episode for today. And I certainly want to be able to bring about that, when Julie and I started to have this conversation, it really started out on the vocational side of things. But I can't help but talk about vocational success because, I mean, if you think about what her story is and how she was for some of us, especially considering the fact that you've got a 3-year old and I think she said 6-year old, 7-year old, and you're in the thick of it all, and you're making a decision that is to step outside your comfort zone and to create a business. Well, let me just tell you that whether or not you're the CEO of your own company because you spun off and started your own company like Julia did, or you're the CEO of a company of your company within a company, which really is what it's all about. You're the CEO of your company within a company because you are, believe it or not, self-employed inside an employment opportunity. So if you're working for a company, you ought to be looking at it as if you're the CEO of your own company inside of it. And that way, you are going to focus as hard as Julia does outside and inside of companies. And now she's outside of it. But the one thing that I absolutely believe she has never, ever taken her eyes off, and that was the kids and the family
Yeah.
and how much of a balance that is. You heard time blocking. That is so critical, especially if you have younger ones. And even more so, it doesn't change, by the way, because I'm an empty nester now and I still time block my family time. And so that all comes into play. And then when she was talking about, being in Colombia and working with somebody there and then, setting boundaries, whether or not you're working for a company or you're working for yourself, set those boundaries because you know what? Sometimes being self employed, your own clients will not respect that you have boundaries. But you got to be able to set it then. Do the people around you, whether it's clients or employees or employer, whether or not they have, do they know what your boundaries are? Do they know that 5 to 9 for Julia meant family time? Don't interrupt me with that. If you do interrupt me during that time, we'll have a discussion because sometimes it's okay, but majority of the time it doesn't have to be because nobody has to work under those kind of restrictions to begin with. If you're efficient with your time during your vocational time, you're going to be incredibly efficient with your relational times.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, guys, I just want to leave you with that. I want you to be able to walk away understanding that when we have Julia back on and we're going to be talking about other aspects that are so critical, philanthropical, spiritual, and then honestly, there's so much more to talk about mergers and acquisitions and other parts of really what she's doing out there. So with that said, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Obviously, for everything it's worth, share it. And there's other people that need to listen to this word at this point. So with that said, guys, I can only say to you, as I always say to everybody else, especially at the end of each show, why don't you go ahead, count your blessings, be a blessing to others as well. So take care, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.
And that wraps another episode of Challenging Your Status Quo. We hope you found inspiration and practical wisdom to carry into your daily lives. If JA has inspired you, join our community by subscribing to the podcast. Stay connected with us at latreacoaching.com and through our social media channels where the conversation and growth continue. On behalf of JA and his whole team, we thank you for listening and invite you to keep challenging the status quo in your own life. Until next time, remember, pursue excellence, live purposefully, and embrace holistic success. We'll catch you next episode.